Hey, and welcome back to another Revit video. In this video, we're going to look at design options. They are quite the subject, and I sure hope you stick around for this video. It's going to be a doozy. It's going to be nice and hopefully not too long, but it's going to be long enough because there's a lot to cover with design options. And really, my hope is that this video serves as like a complete guide to everything you might need to know and might encounter with design options, because they have been used and abused in ways that I've seen that really shouldn't happen. And my hope is that this video will take care of that for you, and that you know everything you need to know about design options to feel confident in using them in your professional work. So here we are. I've just got this basic floor plan, and we're going to start with implementing design options and just changing some of the furniture placements, because maybe we have different options of where we want to see certain elements in my floor plan, just to get a basic idea of what design options are and what they do. So before I do any of that, I want to show you where it is and what it does and what to expect from it in general. So first, it's in the Manage tab. You'll see design options here at the top, and everything else is grayed out. So really, there's nothing we can do except to click on design options here. And once I do that, and we look at what we have in the panel here, we don't have a ton that we can work with right now, especially. So right now we really only have, we can see that we're now editing the main model. Everything else is completely grayed out, and I see option set, and we can click new. So what are we working with here? We only can really select a new option set. So let's go ahead and click new option set and then see what happens. So as soon as I do that, under this now editing main model, I can see I have option set 1, and then I have option and then parentheses primary. What is all of this, and what are we working with at this point? So we have option set 1. And when I click on option set 1, I have more buttons that I can press, more options that I can work with under the option set category here, now that I've selected option set 1. And that's because I've now created an option set. But what are we working with? Because now I can rename it, I can accept primary, whatever that is, and then I can delete it, of course. Easy enough. And then below that, I have option 1. And this says parentheses primary. And you'll notice that as I click option 1, that the buttons are now, more buttons are usable under this option here. I've got, of course, new. I've got rename and duplicate, and we can go from there. So what is all of this? I know I've explained it all finally, but what is this? So option set 1, or in this case, option sets, are, imagine that what we're doing here is we're moving this furniture layout around. So we might, this whole option set is kind of what is happening throughout different options. And then option 1 are my actual options. Of course, I'm saying options so much. And because I'm saying it so much, I want to do something that unfortunately not enough people do. And it gets not only them, but others who work in the model into trouble. And that is renaming, because it is so imperative to rename, and you don't realize it until you start seeing all of these different option sets and then more options underneath them. And I'm just supposed to know what these are. So I'm going to actually delete all of these. We don't need all of them right now, but we're going to work with just one, and we're going to work with one, and that's easy enough. But I also want to rename it. So I'm going to actually rename this option set to furniture. Let's call it furniture layout. That makes sense, because we're going to change the furniture layout. It's essentially the overarching idea of what you're exploring. In this case, the furniture layout. And so we have option 1 here, and this is currently set as our primary. And so this will make a little more sense in a second. So we're going to have, let's say, 2 different options we're going to start with. So we've got this base option, and then we've got, one where we might change the layout a bit. So let's go ahead and make a new option. So as soon as I click new option, that's going to have, I'm now having 2 options under my furniture layout. So it starts to make a little more sense. So overall, I'm working with the furniture layout, and then everything else under it is option 1 and then option 2. So the different layouts. And again, I'm going to tell you, you're definitely going to want to rename these options if there's something specific about them. Like maybe it's like, this is turned 90 degrees, or that includes this specific chair, whatever it might be. But for the purposes of this video, I'm not going to rename them, because it's just going to be 2 options. It's just going to be 2 options, option A, option B. We can go ahead and do that. I'm just going to rename this to A, and then finally B. So we're not saying option so much. So it's option A and B. And we notice here that A still has primary. And so what is primary? Well, primary is, it's going to be the primary option. I don't have a better way of explaining it other than that. But what primary means is that primary will be visible in the project by default in every view. And so imagine that you make a change to, you make a change or add a wall or something. If we disregard any design option and we just say, I just made a new wall, well, it's by default visible everywhere. And there's nothing you can do about that. It's just, that's kind of the way it is. That's how Revit works. And so A being primary in this case, everything that falls within the A design option is going to be default visible everywhere in every view. And that's just how Revit works. And so at this point, I can say, okay, that's great. But if at any point later on, I decide, well, the client has decided to go with B, but I don't want to delete everything or anything like that, I can choose B and then I can click make primary. And as soon as I click make primary, now B is what will be visible throughout the entire project. Okay, before I go changing B, I want to put this back to A, so we'll go ahead and make A primary. And also note, when I do this, there's nothing that falls within A or B. There's no model, there's no anything. They're blank. There's nothing there. And to actually get to work with design options, I need to start adding elements to this option set or specific options within that set to start manipulating what things look like within that option. Okay. So when I hit close, that's great. And now you can see I've got a little more to work with here. I've got design options, of course, but I can choose pick to edit, which means it opens a design option for editing by selecting an element contained in the option. So let's say, for example, if this couch were within a design option, I could choose pick to edit. And then as soon as I would to pick that particular element, it would then allow me to edit that design option. We're going to see that in just a minute. But now you'll see that I have this drop-down box and it says main model. And this is telling me what the active design option is. And so if you want to think of active design option, you could say it's pretty similar, if not the exact same in how it functions, to active work sets. So if we go to our work sets, go to our collaborate and then work sets, I've called this architecture. And so my active work set is architecture, which means every single element I make or copy or place into my model is going to fall into that particular work set. Likewise, if I look at my design options, whatever my active design option is, that element will be then populated into that design option. So by default, again, we saw that we're now editing the main model. We can see now editing main model. That means the active design option is main model. But because I made an option set called furniture layout and then have an A and B option that I can work within, I can choose this. And now you can see that I have furniture layout there. I can't choose furniture layout itself because it's an option set, but I can choose between the options themselves to work with. And this is basically saying, well, I want to work with option A. I want to work with A within furniture layout. And so every element I make or copy, whatever place in that particular option is going to stay there. It's then going to be put there. So if I click on A, then everything else grays out and I can't select anything. It's, of course I can select the text or the tags for the rooms, but that's not a model element. We're talking about model elements. And so there's nothing model element that can be selected here. So like I said before, there's nothing that falls within a design option by default that will allow you to just create a design option, then start working with it. You have to actually add elements into a design option to begin working with it. Okay, so let's go back to the main model. And I want to take you down to the bottom of your Revit screen where you see architecture. And this is the active work set if you hover over it. And likewise, looking at the right side, to the right of that, I see main model, which is actually my active design option. And just like before up here in the manage option or in the manage tab, maybe I'm on any other tab, what's always down here is my active design option. So I can see, of course, my main model, and under my furniture layout option set, I've got A and B, option A and B. So I can again click A and now I'm working within A. That's great. And this button here to the left is actually a smaller version of my design option. So just clicking that will take me to my design options. That's great. It's all the same. Okay, so we need to start adding elements to these options so we can start working with it. And so the best thing I can say is we need to select whatever those elements are. So let's go ahead and do that. I want to take all of these elements here and all of these elements here and put this into my design option set, because at this point I want to start to change the layout. So I come up here to manage, and then I can see that because I've selected elements, this now add to set button is now visible. I can work with this and I can click this, and you'll notice the icon here. It looks like design options with the little blue arrow. Likewise, down at the bottom next to my active design work set, I see the exact same button. It says add to set. So we're going to come up here and I'm going to add to set. And as soon as I do that, I can see add to design option set, and then I can choose which option set to work with and which option set to add those elements into. And then I, of course, only have one, furniture layout. And like that, I also have the option of changing which of these A or B options I want to place these elements in. And so you might say, well, I want to put them in A first. Well, okay, I could put them in just one option first, and then I could go back and put them in another, but I'll show you why not. So let's first put it in A. I'll hit OK, and then that's it. That's great. So you know an element is in a design option if I can no longer hover over it and select it. So like when I take my mouse and hover over these elements, I can't select them or do anything. So like I even clicking and dragging, I can't do anything. And that tells me something. That tells me that they are, probably in a design option. That's kind of how the design options work. And they're in a sense like a pinning of an object, but like to a next level to where you can't really do anything unless you go an extra step. And what that extra step is down here, we can see we've got our main model. Our main model is our active design option. But to the right of that, I can see exclude options. And so this exclude option is basically saying, like, on a selection basis, like, what can I select? Well, I in this case, by default, I'm excluding options, which means I can't select elements within an option. Okay. So you'll notice, of course, I can't select these all elements still, but as soon as I uncheck exclude options, now I can hover over anything in the whole project and then select it, click on it, select it, drag and select other elements. And you can see now at the left here that I can see design option, furniture layout is the design option set, and then option A. That tells me exactly where these elements are that I'm curious about, like where are they? What design option are they in? Anything like that. And of course, if I hit escape a couple times, now exclude options is now checked again. And once again, I cannot click these. So at this point, we have these elements within option A. That's perfect. Let's go into option A. So option A, perfect. And once I go into option A again, now things start to make a little more sense. Of course, like before, we looked at option A with no elements in it, all of my model elements were grayed out. I couldn't select them or anything. But now that I have these elements in my design option, I can select them, do whatever I want with them, put them wherever I want. That makes perfect sense. So now this is great. I think what I want to do in this case is leave the layout like this and then save this layout, or basically put this layout within option B and then change that layout in B. Okay. So we're happy with it here. Let's go ahead and put these in option B. So I'm going to go ahead and select everything like before, go to manage, and then add to set. And believe me, you're going to get lots of errors when it comes to working with design options. If you don't follow the basic rules of how design options work, even I create errors when it comes to design options. It's just the way it is. There are some workarounds, and my hope is that I can cover some of those here. So what is this telling us? This is telling us none of these selected elements can be added to this option set. I don't know what that means. I know what that means, but why? The following warnings provide additional information, okay? Elements that were already in a design option were selected. These will not be added to the option set. Well, okay. Well, that's fine. And so there's an interesting problem that we have. Because if I go back to the main model, I can't select them. If I exclude elements, let's go ahead and select them here and try to add them to my next option. So I've selected them all again. Let's go to manage, add to set. And now here we go. I'm going to choose only B. And I'll hit OK. Well, what the heck is this? This is telling me something else. Well, not really something else. It's telling me the same thing. Elements that were already in a design option were selected. These will not be added to the option set. What the heck? Like, So what is this telling us? This is telling us that you can only add elements to a design option set once, whether that is every design option or not. So what do we do at this point? We're kind of stuck. Well, there's a bit of a workaround. So the way what design options function as and really are just copies of, in this case, we probably want to use the same elements, but maybe we have completely different different models that we want to use for furniture in option B. Well, then we just put those new elements into option B. Easy enough. But if we want to use the same elements and then change the layout, just simply change the layout like we're going to do here, what do we do then? Well, we can replace all of them, or we can do something else. I can choose to either go into option A or exclude options and select them all, because ultimately I'm going to select them. So I'm just going to select all of them. And because design option elements function just as a copy, I'm going to literally Control C, I'm going to copy this. I'm now going to go into my option B and then use my favorite tool in Revit, paste in same place. And once I do that, you might say, well, you just copied it and really, yeah, that's what I did. So originally we could have taken those elements and placed them within option A and B, but we just chose A. Whereas I could have chosen, of course, A and B, but I didn't. But the fact that I didn't, and I decided later, I want all these elements within B, means I need to physically copy them from A to B. That's the workaround. I don't like it. I don't think that's the way it should be, but it does make sense, because if you have an element in option A, you can't just take it from there and then put it in B. That doesn't make sense. So we have to physically copy it. That is why. And of course, it's different if it's not in an option at all and you want to place it there. Okay. So I think we understand that a bit more. So if I go to manage now, I can see I'm in option B. I want to show you something that I like to do a lot if I'm trying to show maybe a blank option with nothing in it, or if I want to use design options to hide an element. I would probably only hide elements within design options if, one, I know enough about design options, but two, if only for this like one specific purpose. There are certain elements within Revit that are profile based that do not translate their materials to a finish schedule. And so I would actually make a box or a cube or something and then paint a particular face of that object if I have a material that's only applied to like railings or any sort of wall sweep or gutters, because that material by default will not fall within a finish schedule. Okay, all that makes sense, but like what am I doing here? I'm essentially trying to make sure that the material of that element continues to populate the finish schedule, because that gutter, if it's a specific metal and that's the only place I have that metal, I want that metal to show up on my finish schedule, of course. But like I said before, if that object is only on a profile-based element within Revit, like a gutter, then it won't populate on a finish schedule because it's a profile-based. I don't like it, but that's the way it is. So the workaround really is to take a cube and then paint a face of that cube, or really any element. And as long as that element exists within your project, that material will be populated on your finish schedule. Great. So again, what am I talking about? Why am I talking about that comparing to design options? Well, a lot of times if you just put a cube in your project, it's going to start showing up everywhere. It's not going to make any sense. You don't really want to have that in all your views and details that you're trying to draw. Of course, it's just there as a placeholder in a sense, but you need it there. So one thing you can do is place that in a design option. And so we can go ahead and do something like that. So I'll go ahead and make a new option set. Let's go ahead and do this, and we'll call this just material. Call it materials there. And so really it's going to basically just put a cube. I'm going to put a cube in my project, and then that will simply put all materials there. Great. So I've got option one, but I want to specifically not show these elements, because that's kind of the point. We want to essentially hide them in a design option. What are we doing, and how would we do that? Well, I can come over here and I can rename this, and I want to actually rename this to blank. It doesn't matter what you call it, just blank. And I'm going to make another option, and we're going to call this materials cube. Maybe we place a cube or something, and that's great. Okay, so there we go. again, because I don't have any element in that design option, it's not going to show up anywhere and I don't have to worry about it. And there's nothing there, but I have to add elements that I want. So let's say I go ahead and I'm just going to make a generic model that's a cube, and we'll place it there. Generic model, again, rename it to material cube. Makes sense. And again, you could apply this to anything. I'm just using this cube at this point. Let's go ahead and place it here. Again, it doesn't matter where. Put it there. It's 4 feet high. It doesn't matter at all. So there we go. Let's put it into our project. There we go. There is our cube. That's fine. And let's say I decided to place my materials. I painted it and whatever. It's good to go. But I want to hide it. I don't need it. Whatever. My finish schedule's fine. I don't want to see this. So what I can do now is, of course, click that. Choose the element that I want. Go to manage, and then we'll add to set. And by default, I got my first option set here, but I don't want to add it to the furniture layout, of course. I want to add it to the materials option set. And, I actually don't want to put it in this blank option set. I want to just put it in the material cube. Okay, so I'll do that, and it goes away immediately. And it goes away immediately because if I look at my design options, the primary is the blank, and the blank has nothing. And I essentially move that element from the main model here into my materials cube. And again, by default, no view in the entire project has this blank as actually no view in the project has this material cube option visible by default, which is great because it's not the primary. That's the whole point here, that the blank is the primary, has no element in it, and we're good to go. Cool. That's great. So all I can do is simply close and move on. So we've looked at that. Let's say now the client has decided what they want to go with. They have completely decided, I want option B. I want option B with my layout. Then what do? Well, this has to be the moment that I am the most happy to work with Revit, is whenever I have a list of so many different design options left and right people have made, whether they're named or not. But you're to the point in the project where the client has decided which option they're going with. And it is so happy to what we call accept the primary here. And what this is going to do is accept the primary option. So it's going to say, all right, everything in option B, that's what we're going to put into the main model. And then everything else will be deleted. You don't have to worry about it. It's all gone. Okay, that's really nice. It makes sense. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to select furniture layout. It's going to be my primary. And then I'm actually going to accept primary. And so what is this telling us? Okay, well, it says deleting an option set causes all of its secondary options and associated elements to be deleted also. That's essentially what we just said, except it's phrasing this a bit differently, as in like deleting, because I'm not deleting it, because I actually have another delete option, which is different than what we're doing because we've accepted the primary. But Revit is saying, well, okay, you're accepting the primary. We're putting that over here. But for everything else, we are deleting the option set for all intents and purposes. So it's really asking us, are you sure you want to delete this option set? Well, I have accepted the primary, and that's what I'm doing. And so, yeah, sure, why not? And so what is this telling us? This says delete dedicated option views. The following views are associated with an option that is being deleted. Press delete to delete all checked views or press cancel. Okay, well, this happens to be a view that falls within option A because we can see it here, level 1-A. We're very familiar with this view, and it wants to delete the view. And let's see why. What does it want to do this? Well, option A is being deleted because we're accepting option B as the primary, and option B will go into the main model. Perfect. That's what we want. But this view is being deleted because it is directly associated to option A, and it's only associated with option A because it is specifically showing option A. Remember, whenever we made level 1-A and B, we specifically said, I want dash A to show option A, dash B to show option B. Great, that makes sense. So because this view is showing option A only, it wants to delete it because I'm deleting option B, or I've accepted option B as primary and I'm deleting option A. Makes sense. So we can choose to delete that, and easy enough, just like that, it's gone. Okay. And then of course we look over here to the right, and Also, my furniture layout is completely gone. I can also close this, and all my elements now are no longer associated with the design option. We can see just right there, design option is main model. That's great. Yeah, so maybe we're not necessarily wanting, maybe we're not quite ready with option A and B being gone and like accepting one of them. Um, and so we've undone that. And let's say, maybe we just want to change it to B. B is the primary at this point. Of course, we make B the primary. Okay, that makes sense. And because, of course, my views are set up in a way to where I have A and B set up this way, I can see A versus B. Great. But again, maybe we want to implement another blank option. Maybe we want to just print out a plan and we can have a designer draw over the top of it. Well, I can come to design options, and under my furniture layout, I can make a new one, and I can call this blank. Of course, we just call that blank again. Blank, not Bleenac. Let's call it blank. Great. Close it, and I'm actually going to make another view. Again, duplicate this one, and then let's rename this and call it blank. Boom. So we call it blank, and then we'll go back to our visibility graphics for this particular view, and then change from our design option from B to blank. I can choose OK, and now those elements are gone, and I can simply have a designer draw a new furniture layout, or whatever, and that's pretty easy. So maybe at this point, our designer's done that, whatever, and we decide, okay, we're actually going to go with B. It makes more sense. So let's go with B, and I can accept the primary. Again, we've already looked at this, but I'm going to go ahead and accept the primary here. Choose yes, but I'm actually not going to delete these views. And we're going to see what happens when I choose not to delete these views. We can see that I had both of these views dedicated to particular options, both A and blank, and I'm not going to delete them. I'm going to uncheck them and then hit delete, and it's basically not going to delete those views at all. And we're going to see what happens. So if we look at blank, this is actually just a glitch. I'm going to go back to B. So we can see B, all the elements here are within our design option main model, of course, because I've accepted the design option. But if I go look at A, it's so weird. If I reveal hidden and then reveal hidden again, we can actually see what we're supposed to see. Same with blank. I can reveal hidden and then reveal hidden. It's just a bug within Revit. But I can see that, whether I'm in level 1-A, -B, or -blank, everything is the exact same. And when I select these elements, I can see that their design option is main model. And that's because I have now accepted that primary and also not chosen to delete the views. So there's kind of an incentive to delete the views, because if you delete the views, you're not really confused anymore. But if I look at over here at the left, I could see I have -A, -B, and -blank. But if I look at my design options, I only have the materials. Like I don't even have the furniture layout design option. So that can be kind of confusing. And of course, the thing to be aware of is that all of these views that you don't delete that were associated with an option that is now gone, it's just going to show the default. And the default isn't even like the primary, because the design option set is gone. It's just going to show the main model, which at that point, it's just an extra view that's confusing. And so, but there's a reason I would not delete a particular view. And that's because maybe I've gone to the trouble of setting up a view for a presentation, and I've got A as the primary forever, and it's all set up. That's great. But then all of a sudden B changes to the primary, and I accept it, and that's great. And well, if I delete this first view that is associated to A that's ready for a presentation regardless of the design option that we ultimately go with, then I don't want to just get rid of that view. So in that case, it would be just fine if I had a view dedicated to something specific to not delete that from a design option, and just have that, display the new default for what was accepted as the primary. So I'm ready for that view in that presentation already. I don't have to do anything else. I don't have to remake the views. That's kind of the point. But if we're looking at an example like this, where I just have level 1-A, -B, -blank, and it's just for your viewing purposes to jump between and see what design options and which view, then I would hesitate not deleting them, because you're just going to be confused now and expect to see something that you don't necessarily see based on the naming. So that's definitely something to be aware of when it comes to design options. So we've covered a lot when it comes to design options, but I want to show a couple more examples of things to be aware of whenever you're working with design options. And so I'm going to make another set. I'm just going to call this I'm going to call this test because this is just going to be a test of how certain elements react in a design option and what to expect. So again, I'm going to call this test option. That makes sense. Also, we don't want them both to be called tests. We'll have test option there. Okay. And so let's go ahead and I'm going to make just a basic wall over here. And let's put like a door and a window in it. That makes sense. We'll just put a window and then we'll put a door. Maybe we'll go ahead and add a couple more walls here, something like this. Great. Okay. So we've got these walls and we want to start to add some of these to this design option, this new design option. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to choose this wall. Maybe we want to work with this wall. Maybe the dimensions of the wall are going to change. Maybe the material is going to change, or maybe the layout or something to do with this wall is going to change. But let's go ahead and add this to our set. So I'll add a set. We're going to make sure to choose test and then put that into test option. Okay. So I'll put that in the test option and you'll notice what happens here. Of course, I can't select the wall anymore because it's in the option, but I can also select this wall. And, Revit does a pretty good job of, keeping our joins together, even if we have an option with this particular wall and this wall being in the main model, it does still work pretty well. And I'm, thankful for that because it could easily be a mess. And you might normally think, and I kind of first thought that we'd have separations between this particular wall and this one because one was in an option and one was not. But the thing to be aware of here is that, like the wall, I can't select it, but the doors and the window, I can't either. And so what is this telling me? This is telling me that when I added the wall to the option, that both the door and the window win as well. Now, what is that? That doesn't make sense. And that's because I just added the wall, and maybe I just wanted the wall, not the door or the window. Well, because both the door and the window are hosted to this wall, they went with it. They went with the wall into the design option. That's just the way it works because that's how hosting works within Revit. It's one thing to move the door and whatever, that's fine. But if you take a host of any element in the project and put it in a design option, what it is hosting will go with it. That is what I want you to be aware of. So let's go down the bottom here, go into our test option, and we can clearly see our door and our window are in our option. Whether we wanted it or not, that's kind of the case. So I'm actually going to undo what I've done. I'm going to remove those from the particular design option. And then we're going to do something a bit different. So I've got them out of the design option. I can click on them and I can see, that the design options main model. Perfect. I can select the door, the wall, whatever. But I want to, maybe this door, it might be a double door. It might be a smaller door. It might be a different type of door. Same with this window. I'm not sure if I want it there, if I want it to be that size, whatever it might be. So I want to put these in a design option. Okay. So with those selected, let's go to add set. And then I want to make sure to put it into this test option. I'll hit OK. And here we go. Well, we got an error. Of course we did. None of the selected elements can be added to the option set. We have seen this before, but this is for a different reason. An insert in a design option cannot be hosted by an element in the main model. If you continue, it will not be added to the design option set. Okay, this is telling me that because the window and door are being hosted by the wall, which is not going into the design option set, they won't be added. The door or the window won't be added. Well, I guess that makes sense because we just saw that if the host goes, everything that it's hosting will go. Sure. Okay. And again, this is selecting both the door and the window, telling me that they're both not going to go. Well, unfortunately, there's no way around it. There's really just no way around it. You have to take this particular element, this window, this door, and put it in. The only real workaround I see is if you make a wall that is just big enough for the window or just big enough for the door to where the door is cutting through it completely, but still being hosted by it. So basically you still can't see it. And then you take that kind of visible wall and door and put that in a design option. But that's such a mess. Just kind of know that you're stuck with taking the host and putting that in a design option and then working with all of its hosted elements. That's just really what I want to get off here because that's just really what I want to make clear, because it has everything to do with the hosting and how that's working, because you can't just take a specific element and dump it in and have it work in design option all by itself. So that's something else. So finally, we could also work with this in 3D. We don't have to just work within design option within plan. We can work with this all the same in 3D. Each specific element can go into a design option. Of course, just this wall, the same. We can add it back to the design option. It's all the same. We can work with this within 3D. We can go back to our test primary and we can really only select that door, the window, and the wall, because we've only added the wall to the design option. So that is something to be aware of as well. It's not just a 2D thing. I did that for ease of making this video and ease of understanding design options, because it can be quite complicated. But really, you can work with design options anywhere, which is really why they're very powerful. So I sure hope this video really ended up being a complete guide to what you need to know about design options, because it does kind of have everything. We went over creating design options, looking at them, editing them, adding elements, and then copying elements in between. Again, you can always copy and paste and place in a different design option if you make a new option, because you might on the fly decide, you know what, let's have another test. Well, I can't add these elements back to, I have to copy them. I have to copy and paste in the same place. Perhaps my favorite element, my favorite tool in Revit. But that's going to do it for this video. We did cover everything we needed to about design options, showing them in particular views, the primaries, everything, accepting them, deleting them. A very exhaustive list. So I know this is quite a long video, but again, I hope it will serve as everything that you might need to implement design options in a way that can be successful in your modeling and everyone else's. And the last thing I'll say is, please rename your design option sets and design options. It just kills me to see all of those option sets, option 1, option 2. It's just monotonous. And honestly, just be aware also that design options take up so much space in your model, and they are essentially copies of the same thing in a sense. They're copies of different elements, whether they're there or not. They are copied into those design options. So if you're having a problem with your file bloated and it's huge, you got a really big file, I would first look to design options and see if you can accept any or just delete any, get rid of them. Again, that is one of the most satisfying things when working with Revit, because I know it will clean lots of things up, because you'll get a lot of different elements in different options that will ultimately be deleted, put back in the main model, and just things will function a lot more smooth. And that's going to do it for this video. Again, I hope you enjoyed it. If you stuck around this long, you're awesome. If you learned something, please demolish that like button. It tells me that you did, in fact, learn something, that you might have liked the video. Also, consider changing the phase of that subscribe button to existing. That helps me out so much. And also, ring that bell for me. Love that bell. So, again, thanks for watching this video. It was long. If you stuck around, you're awesome. I will see you in the next Revit video. Have a wonderful day, and thanks for watching.